Welcome to Language Symphony. Today we will look at complex sentence structures. Many students find it difficult to create such sentences correctly, and that's very understandable. In this lesson, we'll practice making complex sentences step by step with proper grammar and see how they work in real contexts. Before we dive in, let's first identify what is a complex sentence. The main difference between complex sentences and other types of sentences is that complex ones use subordinating conjunctions. Now, you might wonder, how many subordinating conjunctions are there in English? Well, there isn't a fixed number, but most grammar references list around 50 to 60 commonly used ones. These words, or sometimes short phrases, introduce dependent or subordinate clauses and connect them to a main clause. Today, we'll look at some of the most frequently used ones in IELTS writing and speaking. Let's begin with one common use. We often use subordinating conjunctions to show cause and effect. Example: because it was raining, we stayed indoors. Here, the cause was the rain, and the result was staying home. If it hadn't rained, we wouldn't have stayed inside. Now, how does this help in IELTS? You can use it in your speaking, such as you can say, I enjoy reading books in English because it helps me improve my vocabulary and grammar naturally. We can also use it your writing. Example: some students find online learning challenging because they lack face-to-face interaction with teachers. See how natural and academic it sounds? That's exactly what you want for IELTS. Use a comma when the dependent clause comes first in the sentence. And we don't usually use a comma when the independent clause starts the sentence. Why is that? Well, the comma helps separate the dependent clause when it comes at the beginning, so the reader doesn't get lost. But when the dependent clause comes after the main idea, the sentence already feels clear, so no comma is needed. You can also use other subordinating conjunctions instead of because to show cause and effect. Look at these variations. As it was raining, we stayed indoors. Since it was raining, we stayed indoors. All three, because, as, and since, can be used to show cause and effect. You can write, as technology develops rapidly, many traditional jobs are becoming less relevant. Since urban areas are expanding quickly, governments must invest more in public transport. In the speaking, you can say, I decided to study English seriously as it's essential for my future career. Since I enjoy cooking, I often watch food channels on YouTube to learn new recipes. In writing, they sound formal and academic. In speaking, they sound natural and conversational.
Next, expressing contrasts. Let's begin with an example. Although she studied hard, she didn't pass the exam. Here, the result is unexpected. The action did not meet our expectation. In other words, something happened opposite to what was supposed to happen or what we naturally assumed. In IELTS writing, although is very useful, and you may have noticed it appears often. For example, although online learning is convenient, many students find it difficult to stay motivated without face-to-face interaction. Or, although governments have introduced strict environmental laws, pollution levels continue to rise in major cities. Using although shows a good range of grammar in your essays. Now, let's explore some alternatives to although and learn when to use them. First, even though. This is a strong alternative to although and works well in both writing and speaking. Even though many people believe technology improves productivity, it can also lead to distractions. Notice one topic, technology, but two opposite effects. In the speaking test, you can say, even though I was tired, I went to the gym to stay healthy. Normally, you'd expect a tired person to rest, but here the opposite happens. That's why we use even though to emphasize the contrast. Next, while. Another very common conjunction, suitable for both writing and speaking. For example, while governments have made efforts to reduce pollution, environmental problems remain serious. Here, the government's actions didn't achieve the expected results. In the speaking test, you can say, while I enjoy reading novels, my sister prefers watching movies. This highlights two different preferences. Additionally, while can also describe simultaneous actions, when two things happen at the same time. I was reading a book while my friend was reading a newspaper. Both actions were happening together.
This is usually placed in the middle of a sentence. Always use a comma before it. Online learning offers flexibility, whereas traditional classrooms provide more personal interaction. I prefer beaches for holidays, whereas my friend enjoys mountain trips. Interesting. Is it a synonym for while, isn't it? Yes, they both show contrast, but there's a slight difference. While can also describe simultaneous actions, whereas is only used to highlight contrasts. Next, despite the fact that. This phrase is more formal and is often used in writing. For example, you can write, despite the fact that the city has invested in public transport, traffic congestion is still a major problem. Despite the fact that it was raining, we enjoyed our picnic. Be careful. Don't confuse despite with despite the fact that. Despite is a preposition, not a conjunction, so it cannot directly introduce a clause. It will be incorrect to say, despite we worked hard, we failed. In this case, the correct version will be, despite working hard, we failed. Gerund form, simple sentence. However, to make the sentence a complex one, we add the fact that to connect it with a full clause. So, despite, preposition, plus the fact, noun phrase, plus that, clause introducer. Example sentence. Despite the fact that it was raining, we went for a walk. Okay, that's it for today. In the next lesson, we'll explore other subordinate conjunctions and learn how to use them effectively in different contexts. Till then, stay safe and stay with IELTS Symphony.